Good afternoon, everyone. Today I have with me Brad Buttrick of Hidden Harvest Grow Lighting. And as we move forward, we need to really start talking about solutions for the problem. You see the delayed planting going on right now in our fields across the northern hemisphere. This is a solution that we can use. Brad developed this all-in-one spectrum light as he was working at Sunshine Systems. Each panel only draws 36 watts, which means it's easily implementable if you have even the smallest of solar panels. And this full spectrum light will take you through seeding, sprouting, flowering, and fruiting of the plants. I feel this grow light system is something new and something innovative. So for those of you out there looking for solutions on how to grow, how to do indoor farming, how to grow microgreens, how to set up an indoor facility, vertical indoor facility. This will be part one of a 4-part series that we're doing together. And I really hope that this helps you make decisions to at least prepare and think about the way you're going to need to grow your own food moving forward into the intensifying grand solar minimum. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with the grow lights and why you think that this is going to work during this new grand solar minimum. Tell us about the project that you have going on. You have live feed to your grow racks there, and also that you are bringing us through daily updates on how fast the plants are growing compared to traditional red and blue spectrum LED light strips.
Well, when I started working at Sunshine Systems, it was a new technology at the time, not new to science, but new to growers. And it took off like wildfire, unfortunately. And I worked for the company for about 3 years, went to Chicago Flower Show and did consultation over the phone with growers around the country and the world. And there was a lot of, I wouldn't say disappointment, but a lot of more people expected better results out of this pure quote unquote science in this lighting. So after some time with the company and seeing some differences, I started ordering my own lighting and putting different spectrums into it. And then I realized as the industry got bigger, more LEDs were available. In the very beginning, white was a very difficult and expensive color to get. Within 3 years, the price had gone down. So I started mixing my own spectrums, and ultimately I examined daylight from a non-scientific viewpoint. I just looked at what the normal day sunlight was, broke it down into Kelvin temperatures, and then figured out what I want to use for ratios within a grow light. And it's a great grow light. I mean, I've worked with every single grow light in the market today, LEDs, all different colors, with shave lengths and styles, induction lighting, high pressure sodium metal halide, T5s. I've been through all of it. LEDs were supposed to be a solution for everyone in the beginning. And unfortunately, the red and blues, I think, should never really made it to market. It was more of a science fair project because it eliminated very important spectrums that plants use for photosynthesis. So when I put the light together and got everything done, it violates all of the rules supposedly that grow lights follow. As far as you got to keep it close to the light because of close to the plants because of lack of spectrums, driving it with too much wattage to get the spectrum down to the plant. And there's also a lot of problems with traditional grow lighting because you lose 50% of your light in the reflection. It's a round bulb. It was just inefficient across the board, and the LEDs were a solution. And I believe that the white full spectrum that I've designed is the best LED grow light out there today, potentially, because of what it offers to plants. I went through some crazy Kelvin ratios and figured out one that works, and it's apparent on all the grows that I've done. This light doesn't have any faults anywhere. It's actually better than average grow lights.
Yeah, so when I was talking about the YouTube channel that you're running, you're showing daily updates and you also have links. What is the YouTube channel? Can you tell us a little more about that for others out there listening? I know, right in the beginning of the show, a lot of people like to tune in because they don't have a full 2 hours. So I try to put the most bang for the buck in the first 15 to 20 minutes, if you only have limited time. So the racks that you have, and then how you're cataloging and putting this into sort of a database, and you're keeping this for a repeatable, shall we say, project. So how can people find this information that they can see with their eyes what you're talking about?
Right. Well, the YouTube channel is Hidden Harvest on YouTube. I think it's the most important thing to concentrate on right now as far as taking care of folks when they get into a situation where traditional growing methods aren't available anymore. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm proving the lights out on camera every 2 days so people can see the actual growth, what to expect from the lighting, and how to use it. For the next 2 weeks, I'll be doing mostly just visual. I'll start getting into more instruction on how I do things, distances for the light so that you get optimal growth and so forth.
When you talked about we're going to be needing this because we're not going to be able to grow outside, are you talking about total solar irradiance? And with the grand solar minimum coming, they're expecting a reduction of about 5 to 6 watts per square meter out of the total TSI that's, striking our planet. And along with the volcanism, there's going to be more cloud cover, and the increase in galactic cosmic rays also creating a new cloud band and thickening the cloud band from 15,000 to 18,500 feet, which means albedo, less sunlight striking the surface of our planet. How do you think this, in your personal opinion, how do you think this would affect the plant growth compared to the amount of sun that, we've seen in the 1990s, the year 2000, when the skies were relatively clear? That being said, what do you feel that the TSI drop's going to do to the plant harvest compared to bringing it in? And I firmly believe we're going to have to shift our agriculture in many, many ways. So bringing it indoors is only going to be one facet of the whole diamond. There's probably 20 other things we need to get onto. But what do you feel about the growth that's going to be inhibited just by the decrease in TSI, the increase in volcanism, and the increase in cloud layers?
I'm not a scientist like you and I have spoken about. I watch the same channels that you do. But from what I can understand is we really don't know what the sun's going to do, but we do know the magnetosphere is weakening. And according to another program that we watched, there's a potential danger. We won't even be able to go outside if the magnetosphere keeps weakening the way it is. So if it's going to be dangerous to us, how I don't understand how plants are going to grow effectively, especially if there's more or one of higher IR or UA coming through, UV rather. We just don't know what's going to happen to the plants. So, the greenhouse will be an option, but the grow light can still be used in the greenhouse. If we have limited sunshine and limited power from the sun, these grow lights could be added into a greenhouse easily to extend daylight and lengthen grow time and add more spectrum into the greenhouse. Because I don't know what it'll do when the sun weakens anymore. I don't know who would know that. I just know that by using poor grow lights, things don't grow well. So if that sun's doing the same thing, maybe we won't get the same production from growing despite the weather.
Yeah, that's right. And you touched on an important point there, UVB increasing. The UV rates right now, I watch Mr. BBB333, and he also goes around weekly. People who have measuring just in their yards or wherever they might be in their local neighborhoods with the UV, everything, even in the spring, is already 11 and 12. It's ridiculous. When I was a kid, we wouldn't see that until maybe midsummer. And even at that point, it barely went above 10. And if it did in the news, they'd be like, put on sunscreen, it's going to be above 10. It's at 9 something today. And now routinely, even in the spring, it's 11, 12. So, I saw readings last year, 18, 21 in the summertime. So this increased UV. And feel free to throw out some of the references of the channels you're watching, et cetera, just for people to get resource-based. So they can also take a look. And I believe everybody's smart enough out there. If we talk about channels or links to go to, it's your responsibility to look through the information and make your own choice. Not us to feed you and you just believe what we say. That's not the way it works. We're going to give you some information, but it's your choice as an informed individual to compare info and see if you feel it's true. If it's not true, do your own research and then come at it from that point. Don't believe the spoon feeding. You got to do your own research on this.
Well, and this is a very difficult time to bring truth to anyone with all the news situation going on, fake news, and this flip-flop of traditional MSM, and it's very difficult for people to delineate the truth from lies now. Nobody really knows. So you have to really be careful. One of the things that I got a lot when I first got into this about 4 years ago, I came in after watching a bunch of different YouTube channels like Ben from Suspicious Observers talks about. And, I watched his video before I woke up, and that it reeled me in on listening to knowledge more than fear or emotional talk from people that were fear-based thinking rather than knowledge-based thinking. So that's why I try to stick to sites like I really like, Adapt 2030, Suspicious Observers. Ice Age Farmer, Oppenheimer Ranch. Those are my four go-tos during the given day. Outside of that, I think it's all fluff.
Yeah, and I did want to touch on the fake news here for a moment. I don't know if you've seen, but Facebook has labeled every single article. 100% of articles coming out of Breitbart News as fake news. So if anybody's reposting a Breitbart article, there's a little box that is now suddenly popping up that says you might want to check this first. It's its own set of little gray oval boxes that comes up to say learn more about this channel. And when you open it, it comes to the Wikipedia page that says it's known to have all misleading stories. It's 100% misleading fake news, misleading story site. Through the Wikipedia post, LinkedIn. So every Breitbart article coming out. Now, this whole narrative goes directly into the grand solar minimum. So the more information that's trying to come out about these weather changes and the political changes with the weather, you got to realize they're not going to go quietly into the night, and we're not going to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and, hold each other and hug and, have campfires and drum circles. That ain't going to work. They're going to try to distract you until the very end. Because the society needs to keep some sort of coherence as we move forward, and they're just not going to let it fall apart before the events happen. Now, come up with a synopsis of timelines moving forward based on historical documents. It's not just about the weather that we see right now and the satellite record that we get right now. It's all about looking into the past, historical written documentation, and then going further back in time and finding these same cycles, finding what happened in those societies, and then going, all right, it's happening again. What could we expect? But there's 8 billion people on the planet versus just less than 1 billion last time or 1 billion last time. So as we move forward, the distraction in the media is going to get so incredibly heavy.
Sure. And along with that's going to come food shortages. The lights have been gone for a little bit. I hadn't really decided to bring them back until about a year ago. Did some investigation and realized, my wife and I are both, quote unquote, we like to prep. We like to be prep for life, I guess would be the best way to say it. We're not scared of the unknown. We just want to make sure that we've got wood stove, food storage, and all those things. But the real dilemma is how are you going to get fresh food if just in time is no longer, or food shortages? You got to be able to grow your own food. And let's not even talk about the grand solar minimum. Just in general, it makes sense to grow your own food, where all of our food is coming from 70% from other places around the world. It just makes more sense to have it in your backyard or in your basement or in your closet growing, where you don't have to worry about going to the store to keep your family or yourself healthy. And it can be done super easily and with solar, with this lighting system, which is really great.
Yeah, so what kind of timeline would you be looking at with your lights to be growing from seed after you soak the seeds for 24 to 48 hours, and then you lay them out in the trays? What kind of timeline are you looking at there from sprouts into something edible?
Right now, I'm trying to concentrate, and I want to do a quick shout out for a guy as far as microgreens go. It's called the Garage Greenhouse. It's a very small channel, but this guy is a pro microgreen grower. I asked permission if I could drop his name today. He's amazing. And what I'm going to do is I'm a grower by proxy because of the lighting, but I wouldn't call myself a professional grower. I just know what I know because of the lighting. So I'm not an expert in all the different fields of growing. But what I do know is I'm seeking out nutritional food that can be stacked in the basement, grown with a high turnover rate, such as microgreens, wheatgrasses. Basically, what I'm doing right now, it takes about 3 months to get this garden up to speed where I'm getting production out of it. So what I'm doing now is I'm setting everything in place for a larger garden in a month and a half that will have self-sustaining, perpetual tomatoes, peas, chard, mustard greens. I mean, I got so many things coming. I'm going to be touching on perennial vegetables, Egyptian walking onions, stuff like that can all be grown inside very easily, as long as you have an ability to turn the lights on, and it can be done easily with solar.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at some of these superfoods. You just mentioned wheatgrass. I've been having some good luck with Goji Berries sprouts as well. Gojis, you can go down to your local supermarket. They're the little red berries. They're known as a longevity herb anyway. They're incredibly easy to grow. I've been experimenting. I have 2 balconies out here, and we have about 150 pots out there now. It's really more difficult to grow on a balcony than it is out in the open soil, believe it or not, because everything's contained and you have to bring it up and really look after it. But these Goji berries, a longevity food, superfood. But if you plant the whole seed, a berry inside has about 20 seeds. If you take the berry and just plant it, all those 20 sprouts or seedlings come out in that same exact area. But the superfoods is where we're going to need to go, because a lack of nutrition is one thing that keeps again and again and again and again and again popping up through all the written accounts of the grand solar minimums. And let's talk about grand solar minimums for a moment. We have the Dalton minimum. And Brad, you had alluded to the year without a summer up in New England there. So that's one. And then we had the Maunder minimum. And now there's a lot of writings coming out saying Columbus was actually looking for new grow lands. Let me go back into the 1400s, Spore minimum. Sasha Daubler does an amazing bit of work with his abruptearthchanges.com. He has a full PDF there talking about what happened in the Spore minimum 1400s and the European accounts translated from several languages into English. But then at the same time, we find the voyages of Zheng He over in China sent out to look for new grow lands because they were coming into a new grand solar minimum. We come back to the late antique little ice age, circa 535. Japan wiped out. All the Incan empires wiped out. So that was a planetary event. And then we come back into 79 AD. They don't even have a name for that one. It's just the Roman, I guess, what do you say, minimum. Then we come back into 400 BC approximately, and you have another one. Whatever they get for written accounts coming out of this, the number one thing they're always talking about, crops being lost and malnutrition. And when the malnutrition comes, everybody gets sicker easier. So we're going to need to keep our bodies healthier. So talking about superfoods, so you got wheatgrass, possibly goji berries. I'm a fan of Moringa oleifera also. You got to have a warm climate to grow that. But any other things that you could think of that are easy to grow for superfoods that can keep our body packed full of nutrients during this time?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's a bunch of different varieties that can be grown under the lights. It's just a matter of how much room the individual has to grow and how big a garden they want and what kind of foods they want to grow. I know the wheatgrass, Ann Whittemore was the kind of like the one that brought wheatgrass to the forefront, I think back in the late 70s. And I believe that the Hippocrates Center down in Florida is based all around her wheatgrass healing properties and her discovery of it and working with it. And I believe the Essenes also ate grasses as well, watering grasses. So it's considered a blood transfusion for most people. It's high in vitamin C. I just think it's a sustainable juice, and it's going to give you what you need if you don't have anything else. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for people when they can't feed their children and you don't have quality foods to eat. And if you can grow in your basement or in your garage or in a closet, at least you can supplement your food storage if you're prepared already.
Right. And it's kind of fun growing the microgreens anyway, and actually growing anything. Because those plants, you go out there, you check them every day, they're up a little bit. And then if your friends come by after another week, they're like, oh my gosh, look how much it came up. But the microgreens,
Sure.
they come out to a full pot within a week, and people are just stunned, absolutely stunned if they're not growers, how quickly everything moves.
It's true. The other thing I'd like to study and specialize a little bit more in as far as the growing, and I'll start offering more is on the channel, is medicinal herbs that are really important that I can grow in the garden and just keep sustaining with the grow lights on and on and on. Cooking herbs, medicinal herbs, whatever, basils, holy basil, echinacea, any of those things could all be grown. On a schedule and getting the perpetual harvest planted. I just ordered another 300 pots. So there's going to be a bunch of different things going in.
Thanks you. And echinacea also is a really, really good one. And the internet's full of information. I mean, you can find so many sites that are focused on outdoor growing. So you have to wonder, how many of these same plants can we bring indoors? We're using technology on the stacked grow trays. The only thing's going to be limited is the height of the plant. I mean, can you realistically do corn or wheat inside? I don't know about that.
I completely can. I did corn last year inside and got it up to 6.5 feet with heads on it. And that was with T5s. I hadn't even used my lighting. I was just fooling around to see if I could do it. And I think I got up to 4.5 or 5 feet. I've grown a banana tree inside with 90 watts of LEDs, 16 feet tall with no other supplemental lighting. I mean, it's really up to the person and what their height and width restrictions are. I mean, the bigger the budget, the bigger the grow is the best way to say it. If you've got the income to go big, you can grow anything you want inside.
Well, that's interesting. Well, tell me about where'd you grow the banana tree? Which part of the U.S.?
In Chicago, when I was working working for Sunshine Systems, I went out to do the Chicago Flower Show every year for 4 years. And when I got out there, I'd go out a week early and stay a week late to work in the lab that we had created at Sunshine Systems. We were going through a nursery outside of northern Chicago, and I saw a baby banana tree about a foot tall. And I looked at my boss at the time, and I said, geez, let's bring that back to the warehouse and give it a go. And we both laughed all the way back to the warehouse. And 2.5 months later, it was 16 feet tall with a huge display of bananas on it, all under 90 watts of traditional red and blue LEDs.
That shows you can grow tropical plants, which means Moringa oleifera would be a go as well. Moringa, I don't know if you're familiar with it, another superfood. It grows 6 inches a day approximately. And again, it's like spirulina algae, but in a plant form in the leaves. It has that much nutritional value.
That's great. And one of the things that I was able to do also when I was at that other company was I was able to grow grapes, which is very difficult to do inside. I was able to get grapes on vine in the warehouse as well, which was quite outstanding.
Any mold or fungus problems, or what are you doing with the airflow inside some of these areas? You're talking about a warehouse, or you're talking about grow racks in a basement. Airflow is going to be key to that, keeping the mold and fungus down, which was a giant problem during all the last grand solar minimums. Again, written accounts, mold and fungus was a main thing. Like they couldn't eat the crops that they grew, or if they grew, they were so small because the growing season was so shrunken compared to what we get today. But they kept routinely talking about mold and fungus. So they were trying to eat moldy veggies or moldy grains that were coming out of the fields. That's not good for your health.
Well, and the side effect of that mold was being called a witch and drowned.
Yeah, so how do we keep that mold down? That's got to be a major, major thing coming forward. I mean, grain growers, even if they get mold in their crops, are still going to be selling that stuff. So you as an individual, if you're buying something from a supermarket, say circa 2020 or 2021, how are you going to know that whatever you're consuming for your body is going to be clean food? Because that point, all of our rollover data puts it like this. 2019, the crop losses are going to be so stark that the world will wake up, but they will not be in panic. People will understand that we could, if we start growing in different ways, it's going to be very apparent by next year in the harvest season that something is wrong. Wait until this harvest season. We're going to start to see losses, and they'll be like, well, it's just because of the late planting. It was a one-off. It was caused by CO2, whatever. So people will accept that. But then the next year, when it's the second year in a row and our winters are even worse than they are this year, more snow, longer season for the winter, coming into spring and also coming into winter, it's going to be weeks earlier. The crop losses are going to make international news at that point. People are going to get woken up. 2020 is when we consider that the first food shortages will start. Things are going to get incredibly expensive, but by 2021, it'll be at the point where we'll have either put full steam of society pushing into these new grow units and grow zones and grow ideas. 2021 is your year that you need to get ready for.
In order to do that inside and to do everything right, fans are essential to keep air moving. And then cleaning. I do a lot of cleaning. I painted everything white before I started. I clean it every other day. I get in there and get all the loose dirt, any water buildup anywhere that might be from my watering. Try to water out of the grow and put everything back in after it's drained so that I'm not creating an environment for mold to happen. Some mold is naturally occurring. Like peas, they got a weird little mold that grows on them. It doesn't usually go too far. It seems indicative with the plant. It just seems like a light mildew maybe or a mold on it, but you try to clean it off. It's just part of the plant. As far as the cleanliness, I use a little bit of peroxide and a little bit of bleach, not together. I use peroxide as a mist on the walls, kill any bacteria, and then I use bleach on the flats, let everything dry out and rinse it well. You really have to keep everything clean. And, these are labor-intensive gardens, believe it or not. It's just as much time doing these as it is an outdoor one. You just have less things to worry about, but a few more that you don't have to worry about with outdoor growing. I never have to worry about deer eating my vegetables. I never have to worry about wind blowing over my lettuce. It's just always there and available.
Yeah, and think about the weather changes we're seeing right now. I mean, what is it with this winter that is absolutely, completely out of the norm, what was predicted with global warming? And I will call it global warming because we talked about our ages earlier before we started the show here. When I was growing up, it was always global warming. It was going to get hotter, hotter, hotter. And then they did the bait and switch. And I did a video just the other day showing what the newest IPCC charts put out as the effects of what would be considered CO2 on our atmosphere. They put extreme cold at the #1 position now of expected changes in our atmosphere. I shook my head and I said, no, that's impossible, because the IPCC, the first, second, and third reports that they did always put heat in #1 and the cold was way down at the bottom. Now, how did they reverse that? If the science was settled and we knew exactly what would happen, why is it suddenly they're reversing and putting cold now in front? Unless they're trying some bait and switch too. Now they'll say, well, no, we said cold would be first. See, we were right on the money. So give us more money. Give us more tax money.
Well, when I was a kid growing up in Massachusetts, the blizzard of '78 hit and it locked down the entire state, the middle of the state, the beltway through the state for 3 or 4 days. There's still marks on telephone poles down in the town that I lived in Westboro, marks from where the snow was before the plows and then after the plows, higher than basketball, rims. It's just incredible. I remember being locked in the house as a kid for 2.5 days. We had to throw the dog out the window and drag it back in with the leash so it could go to the bathroom because the snow was so deep. But I was talking to you earlier this year. We had blue tinted snow up here, which was very odd. I do snow removal in the winter with property management, and we were all kind of befuddled when we saw the blue tinted snow this year.
Yeah, what do you attribute that to? Because I notice people also talking about strange snows. The ice coming down in the hailstorm was shaped like spears.
Yep, it was on a channel. This woman, I think she's from Ohio. Her name is April Devine. She went outside and was picking up icicles off the ground and said they were falling out of the sky. And I'm like, geez, I've never seen or heard of that myself. So that's why I sent it to you to see if it was something normal or rare.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the extremely rare category. This hail that came out, I can't even describe it as hail because most of us understand hail as kind of a circle or a ball that comes out of the sky. This looked exactly like a spear or an icicle coming out. I have never seen anything like this, and I looked around on the net to see if I could find, icicle hail, and I just didn't really find anything.
One thing I noticed this year, different than any other year, and I told you before we started the broadcast, I work outside every day ever since I was a kid. A lot of our trees this year, I would say 80% of our trees up here, all shot seed, especially the coniferous, everything, the hemlock, the pine, super abundant seed production this past year. And none of us have seen it. We're all in our 50s that hang out together. We own property over in Hillsboro. The mountain where we were walking across, we just looked up in the trees, just thousands of seeds and all these, hemlocks and pines and spruce. It was crazy. It may be a regular cycle I'm not familiar with, but I've never seen it that way before, being in the woods my whole life.
Yeah, and you have to wonder how the animals would take to this as well. Intuitively, the animal species around, if the trees are putting off this much seed, and we saw the same thing in Ohio last year where the amount of acorns that had come down was a record. Nobody had ever seen this many acorns come down before. Literally, when they were walking, it was a blanket of acorns across the ground. Like they couldn't even see any open ground. There were that many acorns that had fallen. We can eat acorns as well if you prepare them, soak them for a few days. So what's growing indoors, what can you find outdoors that you could eat too? But nature is absolutely giving us a signal. Birds are migrating earlier. Birds are going to the wrong places. That could be from the magnetic poles that are in movement at the moment. But something has definitely just shifted.
It's a feeling is what I could say. And it's backed up with now people like yourself and Ben proving it. And, Oppenheimer, Ice Age, all these guys showing the facts of what's actually happening. So if you had an inclination that it might be happening and you're looking for decent, knowledge-filled, no-fear sites to watch to figure out what's going on, now there's a few out there where you're getting the truth and you have to do something about it unless you're crazy. How do you sit back best and just hope for the best?
And I do thank you for your valuable time listening to Brad and I discuss the future of where our industries and society are moving into. This is part 1 of 4. I'm going to continue with the next episode next week where we get much deeper into the changes on our sun affecting agriculture on our planet. You can find all the links below in the description box, including links to Hidden Harvest YouTube channel with the video grow series watching the progress of indoor farming, which you can do yourself.